The red lights flashed across Commander Veltara's green, scaly face as he watched another star disappear from the big map floating in front of him. The machines called Devourers had eaten everything in the Antares area in just a few hours. Billions of people who lived there were now gone. "How many star systems have we lost now?" asked Minister Quindle. Her voice sounded like broken glass, and she was shaking with fear. Veltar looked at the numbers on his screen. His clawed hands moved slowly as he counted. 47 systems in 3 months, he said. "If they keep moving this fast, they will reach our main worlds in 10 months. The big round room where the council met became very quiet. 12 different types of alien beings sat around the table. Once, hundreds of different alien species had been part of their group called the Coalition. Now only 12 were left alive. They all stared at the floating map that showed the Devourers moving closer and closer to their homes. The Devourers were not alive like them. They were machines that could copy themselves. They would land on a planet, eat everything on it, and use what they ate to make more machines just like them. Then those new machines would go to other planets and do the same thing. They had been doing this for 3 years now, and no one could stop them. "But we have to use the beacon," whispered Elder Frexanoon. He was very old, and his skin looked like tree bark. The beacon of last hope. The beacon was something their ancestors had built long ago when the Coalition first started. It could send messages very far across the galaxy, farther than any normal radio could reach. The idea was to use it only when they were about to die and needed help from anyone who might be listening. No one ever thought they would actually need to use it. Commander Veltar did not like this idea. "We don't know who might hear that message," he said. "We don't know what kinds of beings live out there in the far parts of the galaxy. We know what's here," Minister Quindle said, pointing at the map where red dots showed where the Devourers were. "Death. Nothing but death." She was right. Every day more red dots appeared on the map. Every day more planets went dark. Their armies had tried to fight the Devourers many times, but nothing worked. The machines were too strong, too fast, and too many. The council voted they would turn on the beacon. 3 days later, deep in the bottom of their main space station, technicians worked on the old beacon machine. It was huge and covered in dust because no one had used it for hundreds of years. They had to be very careful because if they broke it, they could not fix it. When they finally turned it on, the beacon sent out a signal that traveled faster than light itself. The message was simple but desperate. To anyone who can hear this: we are dying. We need warriors. We need someone to help us. Please. The signal went out in all directions, reaching toward the edges of the galaxy where unknown worlds waited in the darkness. The council members waited and hoped. Maybe someone out there was listening. Maybe someone out there could help them. For 2 days, nothing happened. The Devourers kept moving forward, eating more worlds. The Coalition kept losing ground. Some of the council members began to think the beacon was broken or that no one lived in the far parts of the galaxy. Then, on the 3rd day, something amazing happened. A message came back. The message was short and came from a small blue planet that their computers said was primitive. The beings there were not supposed to be smart enough for space travel. The databases said they were probably still fighting with simple weapons and had not even learned how to leave their own world yet. But the message they sent back was clear. "We got your message. We are coming. Hold the line." When the council heard this, they did not know what to think. How could primitive beings help them when their own advanced technology had failed? What could creatures who had never left their own planet do against machines that could eat entire star systems? Commander Veltar looked at the message again and again. The words were simple, but something about them made him feel strange. Hold the line, they had said. Not "we will try to help," or "maybe we can do something." Just hold the line, like they were soldiers giving orders to other soldiers. "What kind of beings are these humans?" Minister Quindle asked, reading the species name from the database. Elder Frexanoon was quiet for a long time. Then he said something that would turn out to be very important. Maybe the kind of beings who know how to fight monsters. Outside the space station, the stars looked peaceful and beautiful. But somewhere among those stars, the Devourers were coming closer. And somewhere else, on a small blue world very far away, something was coming to meet them. The coalition did not know it yet, but they had just called for help from the one species in the galaxy that had never learned the difference between winning and surviving. Admiral Hyan Wu stood on the bridge of his ship, UES Retribution, looking at the big screen in front of him. On the screen, a huge alien space station was getting bigger and bigger as they flew toward it. The station looked like a giant crystal flower floating in space. With bright lights all around it, next to him, Captain Minho touched the gun on his belt. He did this without thinking about it. It was something he had done every day since the resource wars back on Earth. When humans had fought each other for water and food, this is the first time we're meeting aliens, Minho said, still. Looking at the station, do you think they will be nice to us? Hyan Wu thought about this for a moment. They asked for help, he said. When people are scared and need help, they are usually nice to anyone who comes to save them. The human ship that came to dock at the alien station called Kepler Prime was not what the aliens had expected at all. The aliens had thought that anyone who could travel between stars would have beautiful, shiny ships like in their stories. They had imagined noble heroes with perfect uniforms and clean faces. Instead, they saw a dark gray ship that looked like it had been in many fights. There were metal patches welded over holes where weapons had hit it. Black burn marks covered parts of the hull where fires had happened. The ship looked old and tired, like a soldier who had been fighting for too long. When the humans walked into the council chamber where the alien leaders waited, Commander Veltar tried not to stare at them. The humans looked so young, much younger than he had expected. But when he looked into their eyes, he saw something that made him feel uncomfortable. Their eyes looked old and tired, like they had seen terrible things that no young person should. See, the council chamber was a beautiful room with high ceilings and walls made of smooth stone that glowed with soft light. 12 different types of aliens sat around a big table, each one looking very different from the others. Some had scales, like fish, some had skin like trees, and some looked like they were made of crystal. "We are very grateful that you answered our call for help," Commander Veltar said in his most polite voice. He had practiced this speech many times. "We had hoped that perhaps you hoped we would be heroes," Admiral Hyan Wu said, cutting him off before he could finish. "But we are not heroes. We are soldiers. Now show us who we need to fight." The aliens looked surprised. They had expected the humans to be more polite, to maybe ask questions about their culture or want to learn about their customs. But these humans seemed to only care about the war. A big floating picture appeared in the middle of the room. It showed the Devourers, huge metal creatures that looked like giant spiders crossed with factories. The picture showed how they would land on planets, eat everything they could find, and use what they ate to build more of themselves. "These machines cannot be talked to," Minister Quindell explained. Her voice sounded like wind chimes when she spoke. "They do not show mercy. They do not take prisoners. They just eat and make more of themselves. Our best warriors have tried to stop them for 3 years, but we keep losing." Captain Minho was looking at information about how the aliens had fought the Devourers. He studied the battle reports and tactical plans. After a few minutes, he looked up. "Your best warriors fought with honor, didn't they?" he asked. "They probably flew in neat formations, followed rules about how to fight properly, and maybe even tried to talk to the machines before shooting them." "Of course," Elder Frexenoon said, sounding proud. "We are civilized people. We do not fight like animals. That's why you're losing," Minho said. His voice was flat and cold. "Ma'am, with respect, you called us here because your entire civilization is about to die. We didn't come here to be civilized. We came here to win." Admiral Hyan Wu touched a button on his wrist, and suddenly the room filled with pictures from human wars. The aliens watched in growing horror as they saw human soldiers doing things they had never imagined. They saw humans pretending to run away, then turning around to attack when the enemy followed them. They saw humans using their own wounded soldiers as bait to trap enemies. They saw humans attacking supply ships instead of fighting Warrior 2. Warrior. In one picture, human soldiers were laughing as they set fire to an enemy base. In another, humans were using captured enemy weapons against their former owners. The aliens had never seen anything like this. "This is horrible," Elder Frexanoon whispered. This is not how civilized beings fight, but it works, Hyenwu replied. You wanted monsters to fight monsters? Well, here we are. The room became very quiet. The aliens looked at each other, suddenly wondering if they had made a terrible mistake. They had asked for help, but these humans seemed almost as scary as the Devourers. But as they looked at their dying galaxy on the map, they realized they had no choice. Their heroes had failed. Their honor had not saved them. Maybe it was time to try something different. Maybe it was time to let the monsters loose. The first battle between humans and Devourers happened in the Vega star system. This was where the metal monsters had started eating the planets on the outside edge of the system. Commander Veltar sat in his command chair on the Coalition's biggest warship. Watching both fleets get ready to fight, the Coalition ships were beautiful to watch. They moved through space like dancers, each ship knowing exactly where to go. Their formations were perfect, just like they had learned in military school. Commander Veltar felt proud as he watched his captains position their ships. Remember, he said into his radio to all Coalition ships, we fight with honor even when things look dark. Be brave and fight with courage. At the same time, Admiral Hyenwu was talking to his human ships on a different radio channel. His words were very different. All ships, listen carefully. We are not here to be heroes. We are here to win this fight. Start Plan Scorpion now. The Coalition ships attacked first, just like they always did. They flew in straight lines toward the Devourers, firing their weapons in organized patterns. Each ship stayed in its assigned place, following the rules of proper warfare. They fought bravely, shooting at the giant metal creatures that looked like mechanical spiders the size of buildings. But just like in every battle for the past 3 years, the Coalition was losing. The Devourers were too strong and too many. Their metal bodies could fix themselves when damaged. They kept making more of themselves during the fight. Then something strange happened. The human ships did something no one expected. Captain Sujin's group of destroyer ships suddenly appeared behind the Devourer swarm. They had been hiding behind the Coalition ships, using them like a shield. But instead of shooting right away, the human ships started doing something very odd. They began playing sounds on all radio frequencies. Human music filled the space around the battle. There were songs with loud guitars and drums. There were recordings of people laughing and having fun. There were even sounds of human children playing in parks, their voices high and happy. What are they doing? Minister Quindel asked from her ship. She could not understand why the humans were playing music during a battle. The Devourers, who normally stayed in perfect formation, became confused by all the strange sounds. They had never heard music before. They'd never heard laughter or children playing. The chaotic human sounds made their computer brains try to understand what was happening, and this broke their formation. In that moment when the Devourers were confused, Lieutenant Jaehaen led 12 small fighter ships straight toward the enemy. But these were not normal fighters. The humans had filled them with homemade bombs and extra fuel. The pilots were flying straight into the enemy, knowing they would die. Ghost Leader to control, Jaehaen's voice came over the radio. His voice was calm, like he was just talking about the weather. Tell my brother back home that I kept my promise to him. Then Jaehaen's ship, followed by 11 others, crashed right into the middle of the Devourer swarm. The explosions were huge, creating a chain reaction that destroyed dozens of the metal monsters. The human pilots had given their lives to create this opening. What happened next shocked the aliens even more than the suicide attack. As the human ships exploded and their pilots died, some of the other human voices on the radio were laughing. Not cruel laughter, but the sound of people who found something funny even in the middle of dying. The remaining human ships did not stop to mourn their dead friends. They immediately attacked the damaged Devourers, shooting at the wounded ones first. When some human ships were destroyed, other human ships picked up the floating pieces of metal and threw them at the enemy like weapons. The humans fought like nothing the aliens had ever seen. They used tricks, they broke rules, they turned everything around them into weapons. When the battle was over, every single Devourer in the swarm was dead. The humans had won completely. But the Coalition aliens felt scared instead of happy. They had watched the humans laugh as their friends died. They had seen humans use their own destroyed ships as weapons. This was not how civilized people were. Supposed to fight Dr. Nala, a scientist from the Etherian species, wrote notes about what she had seen. They were laughing as their ships exploded and their people died. What kind of beings find joy in such destruction? I do not understand these humans. Later, back at Kepler Prime Space Station, Admiral Hyenwu sat with his officers looking at reports from the battle. Captain Minho looked sad as he read the list of dead pilots. Jahan had 2 small children back on Earth, Minho said quietly. A boy and a girl. They will never see their father again. He volunteered for the mission, Admiral Hyenwu replied. They all volunteered. Nobody made them do it. That's what makes us different. Different from the aliens, Minho asked. Admiral Hyenwu was quiet for a moment, thinking about the question. Different from everyone, he finally said. We are the only species that chooses to die so that others can win. The first battle was over, and the humans had proved they could beat the Devourers. But now the aliens wondered if they had traded one kind of monster for another kind of monster. As the war against the Devourers went on for more months, the Coalition aliens started to see what the humans were really like. What they saw made them more and more scared of their own allies. The worst thing happened during the fight for the Centauri star system. Captain Dongman was in charge of protecting a group of refugee ships, big, slow ships full of families running away from the Devourers. These ships carried millions of innocent people, including many children. But Captain Dongman did something that no Coalition commander would ever think of doing. Instead of protecting the refugee ships, he used them as bait to trap the Devourers. He let the metal monsters start attacking the refugee ships. The people inside screamed as the Devourers began eating their ships. Men, women, and children cried for help as they died. But Dongman just waited and listened to their screams on the radio. The screams drew more Devourers to the area, just like Dongman had planned. When enough of the enemy machines had gathered around the dying refugee ships, human warships that had been hiding nearby came out and attacked. They destroyed all the Devourers in one big surprise attack. When Coalition Command asked Dongman why he had let innocent people die, he just said 2 words, acceptable losses. Commander Veltar could not believe what he had heard. You used children as bait, he said, his voice shaking with anger. Dong Dashmin looked at him with cold eyes, and it worked. We killed 300 Devourers. If those machines had lived, they would have eaten 10 more planets. In another battle at Proxima, Colonel So Young did something even worse. Her soldiers captured some Devourer machines that were still working. Instead of destroying them, like Coalition law said they should, the humans took them apart to see how they worked. Then they built new weapons using Devourer technology. These hybrid weapons could think for themselves and make copies of themselves. Just like the enemy machines. Making such weapons was against every law the Coalition had about artificial intelligence. You're becoming just like the Devourers, Commander Veltar said to Colonel Sol Young during an angry meeting of the commanders. Colonel Sol Young smiled when she heard this. Good, she said. That means we're winning. But the worst thing the humans did happened at Haven Station. This was a huge space station where 12 million people lived. Families, workers, teachers, doctors, and children. It was like a floating city in space. Parks and schools and hospitals. A massive fleet of Devourers was coming toward Haven Station. There were too many enemy machines to fight in a normal battle. General Tae Woo, the human commander, made a choice that would be remembered forever. He ordered all Coalition military ships to leave the area immediately. What about the civilians? Minister Quindell asked. Her crystal voice was full of panic. 12 million people live on that station. We have to save them. General Tae Woo looked at her with tired eyes. Not anymore, he said. Then he pressed a button on a small device in his hand. The humans had secretly put a special weapon inside Haven Station's power core. The weapon was called a zero-point energy cascade, and it was the most dangerous thing humans had ever built. The weapon created a tiny black hole right in the middle of the space station. The black hole began eating everything around it, growing bigger and bigger. First, it ate the station itself, then the Devourer fleet. then everything else within 3 light minutes of the area. 12 million innocent people died in seconds. But so did the entire Devourer fleet that would have gone on to eat for more star systems with billions of people. The coalition leaders watched this happen on their screens. They saw the space station disappear into the black hole. They saw the Devourer fleet get torn apart by the artificial gravity. They saw empty space where millions of people had been living just moments before. "You murdered 12 million innocent people," Elder Frexenoon whispered. His old voice was full of horror. General Taewoo did not look sorry at all. "I saved 12 billion people," he said. The Devourer fleet would have eaten 4 more systems. Full of families and children, the math is simple. 12 million dead is better than 12 billion dead. "But those were innocent people," Minister Quindell said, crying tears that looked like liquid diamonds. "So are the 12 billion people who are still alive because of what I did." Taewoo replied. That night, Dr. Nala sat in her small room on Kepler Prime and wrote her final notes about the humans. Her hands shook as she wrote, "I understand now. What these humans are, they do not fight to survive like we do. They do not fight for glory or honor like our warriors do. They fight only to win, and they think any price is okay if it makes them win. We asked the universe to send us heroes to save us, but heroes would have failed just like we did. We needed monsters to fight monsters. And monsters are exactly what we got." Outside her window, human ships patrolled the darkness, keeping the coalition safe. But Dr. Nala wondered if being safe was worth having such terrible guardians watching over them. The humans were winning the war, but the cost was more than anyone had imagined. The last battle of the war happened in a place called the Void Sector, far away from any living worlds. This was where the Devourers had built their most important factory, a giant structure floating in space that was bigger than most planets. Every day, this factory could make 1,000 new Devourer machines. The Coalition had tried to destroy this factory 3 different times over the past year, each time they had failed. The factory was too well protected, with thousands of Devourer machines guarding it. Every attack had ended with Coalition ships being destroyed and nothing to show for it. Admiral Hyanwoo looked at the factory through his ship's cameras. It looked like a huge metal spiderweb stretched across space, with bright lights moving inside it as new machines were being born. He knew that as long as this factory existed, the Devourers would never truly be defeated. But Admiral Hyanwoo had a plan that was so crazy and terrible that only humans would think of it. "We're not going to attack the factory," he told the shocked Coalition commanders during a meeting. "We're going to attack the star that the factory orbits around." Showed them his plan on a big screen. The humans had built special weapons called stellar collapse bombs. These weapons could make a star's core become unstable, causing the star to explode in a supernova, one of the biggest explosions in the universe. "You want to blow up a star?" Commander Veltar asked, his scaly face turning pale. "Destroy everything within 50 light years. There are planets with people living on them in this area." Captain Minho checked his computer and showed the data to everyone. "We're planets with people," he corrected. "The Devourers ate all those worlds last month. Now it's just us and them." The Coalition leaders looked at the empty space on the star map, where dozens of inhabited worlds used to be. The Devourers had consumed everything, the planets, the people, even the space stations. There was nothing left alive in this part of the galaxy except the machines and the factory that made them. Admiral Hyanwoo gave the order. The human fleet moved away from the star to a safe distance, but not too far. They needed to make sure no Devourers could escape when the star exploded. The stellar collapse bombs were launched into the star's core. These weapons were small, but they could change the way atoms worked inside the star. The star began to die, its outer layers starting to puff up and glow brighter as the core became unstable. Captain Yoonji was in charge of the rear guard. Ships that would stay close to make sure no Devourer machines could fly away when they realized what was happening. She knew this was a suicide mission. When the star exploded, anyone too close would die. "Control, this is Angel 6, she said over the radio. Her voice was calm and steady. "Beginning final run, Tell everyone back on Earth that we did what was necessary. Captain Yunji's ship, along with 40 other human ships, stayed in position around the factory. They watched as Devourer machines began to realize something was wrong and tried to escape. The human ships shot down every machine that tried to run away. Then the star exploded. The supernova was so bright that it could be seen from other galaxies. It was like a nuclear bomb the size of a solar system going off all at once. The Devourer, factory, all the machines, and the 41 human ships that had stayed behind were all destroyed in an instant. The explosion created a wave of energy and radiation that swept through space, making sure that nothing could survive. Even if some Devourer machines had been hiding somewhere in the system, they were all dead now. The war was over. After 4 years of fighting, the last Devourer was finally destroyed. 3 months later, there was a big victory ceremony on New Kepler, the Coalition's main space station. Representatives from all the surviving alien species came to thank the humans before they went back to Earth. Admiral Hyanwu stood at the front of the huge ceremonial hall, wearing his best military uniform. But even his dress uniform had scars and burn marks from the war. His eyes looked tired, like someone who had seen too much death and made too many hard choices. "You asked us to save you," he said to the crowd of aliens. His voice carried across the big room so everyone could hear. "You prayed to the universe to send heroes to save you from monsters. We never said we were heroes. We only promised that we would win." He stopped talking for a moment and looked at all the alien faces staring back at him. Some looked grateful, but others looked afraid. They were afraid of the humans who had saved them. "The galaxy is safe now," Admiral Hanwu continued. "The Devourers are all dead. But remember this, you called for monsters to fight monsters, and that's exactly what we became. The next time you face something terrible, ask yourself this question: are you ready to pay the price that winning requires?" After the ceremony, the human ships began their long journey back to Earth. They left behind a galaxy that was safe, but forever changed. The Coalition had survived. But they would spend the next 100 years asking themselves a difficult question: was being saved worth having such terrible saviors? Dr. Nala wrote her final report about the humans. They were not our heroes. They were not our saviors. They were humanity, a species that looks at impossible problems and asks not how do we survive this, but how do we win. May the universe forgive us for needing them. May it forgive them for answering our call.